microprocessor.
Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. Excuse me. My goodness. Um, yeah, it's Friday, February 14th, 4:31 a.m. Pacific time. I think the link for the original show might actually be broken, so I have a new link. Because for some reason when it was scheduled, it ended up scheduling for like 2:30 this morning. I don't know why. But anyway, sorry about that. So I sent out the new link on my x.com account if you're following me there. Um, I'm kind of congested right now, so I do apologize for the way I sound. But yeah, so it's Valentine's Day. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. Yesterday we got a little bit of light rain, which was really nice, considering it's Phoenix. But yeah. So it was pretty nice yesterday. I don't know what it's gonna be like today yet. I just kind of woke up a little while ago, so I haven't had a chance to go out and check the weather here. But I hope wherever you are, it's nice and not too cold or what have you. I was kind of looking at some news last night on X.com, and I saw a lot of snowstorms and everything like that. So I can't remember where they were. I'm trying to profess empathy and I'm just failing miserably. But anyway, if you're like caught up in some weather, I hope you stay safe. That's basically all I'm trying to say. But so um the last podcast on Wednesday, I kind of spent some time talking about some things that I don't plan to talk about anymore. It's just a little triggering for me and I don't really enjoy feeling that way. I know there's some people out there that enjoy causing people to feel that way, and I find that to be very juvenile. But, people are going to do what they do. If it happens again, I'll just deal with it then. But today, I'd really like to talk about what I wanted to talk about on Wednesday, which was Autumnly Online. That was one thing that I didn't go over. Autumnly Online, if you had followed me at all back when I was more active and had more of a following back in 2007, which I doubt anybody does. Like I said, I pretty much deleted my entire presence, which is another story for another day. It was kind of dramatic. But anyway, um, yeah, so I have been running Autumn Lee's News since 2007. Back then, Autumn Lee Online was a separate social network that would host the gossip, celebrity gossip, and it was kind of like the same concept as Discord. So I'm no longer using Autumn Lee Online for a social network. Because you can actually join Autumn Lee's News and you can see the gossip pages and members will gossip page. You can see the members only pages by joining, and it's completely free. So if you go to autumnleesnews.com and click on login or register, you can enter your email, make up a password, and I think you just click that you want to receive marketing materials. And that's pretty much it. And then you have access to the members only pages. There's never a fee to join, never a fee to be a member. So Autumnly Online will be used mainly for archived stories because that site's going to get pretty insane with the stories from death row and the news posts. Again, I don't know if you followed me back in 2007, but I'm doing quite a bit more than I did ever on autumnleesnews.com. So I plan on it getting a lot bigger than it is now. Um, But yeah, so I kind of wanted to just talk about what Autumnly Online is going to be used for. And the new URL for that is autumnly.online, which is spelled just like my name, dot online. I have kind of a template up right now. So there's no real content, just kind of a preparation of what's going to be coming to that site. It's not going to change much from what it is right now. And I'm just going to type that link in here in case anybody happens to be watching or listening. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell for me because I have this podcast on different platforms, so it's hard to tell like who's listening and who isn't. But anywho, yeah. So Autumn Lee Online is basically just going to end up being like archives of certain coverage that's on Autumn Lee's news that I don't plan to keep there permanently. Probably a lot of the true crime stuff. That's something else that I wanted to get back into. I'm finishing up for Teaspies right now and this The Secret of the Nine Diamonds book series, but something I used to do quite a bit more of years ago that I haven't done in a really long time for personal reasons is write true crime. And it's really, while I love writing fantasy fiction, my real passion is writing true crime, but it just kind of got difficult for me to do. So I stopped in about 2010, 2011, and I haven't really done it since I started up the stories from Death Row recently. And if you haven't had an opportunity to check out my new blog project, Stories from Death Row, Uncensored and Explicit, use caution when you do so. It's definitely content that's not safe for work. You can find that at autumnleesnews.com. S as in stories, F as in from, D as in death, R as in row. So Sierra, Foxtrot, Delta, Romeo. Autumnleesnews.com, and then the page is SFDR. Those are true stories from death row inmates all over the United States. I don't communicate with these inmates. The first story that I did, the first two blogs are based on a case that I was involved in personally. So I did communicate with Cartwright, and that's included in the blog. But it's not something that I've opened up to any kind of sort of correspondence with inmates on death row yet. I don't know that that's where I'm going to take it. Sorry, I needed some coffee. I'm not sure that that's where I'm going to take it yet. I was thinking about that the other day, but if I do, if I do in the future, which I don't know if I will, but if I do, it's going to be hosted there and it's going to just end up being like a sounding board for certain things for certain inmates. But again, I don't know that that's something I really want to actually pursue. I thought I did when I started this blog project, but I think I'm going to take it in a little bit different of a direction, perhaps because the correspondence, and I don't want to discourage anyone from doing this on your own personal time. There are a lot of wonderful people who like to volunteer their time to, death row condemned inmates who are facing execution and don't have anyone in their lives. And if you have the credentials to be able to do something like that, like you're a licensed therapist, for instance, then I would encourage it. Otherwise, just based on my own personal experience, I don't think it's a good idea for anybody to write to anyone in prison unless you know them, because it's just that might be something else that I talk about on a different podcast too, because the experiences that I had when I was involved with the Texas abolitionist movement, um, I'll never forget them. They stay with you for your life. That I met people that I don't even know would remember me, but I will never forget them. And I don't know. It's that's something that, I think I'll have a podcast about, and it's going to be a lot longer than this one. This is just me kind of bullshitting, just saying hi. But yeah, eventually I'd like to talk about that. But I don't know that I want to take the stories from death row to a place where, I'm encouraging people to communicate with prisoners because, again, if you don't have like the education, um, the credentials, You have to really have a certain type of personality. You have to be educated and have the ability to handle and I'm not even going to say a diverse group of people because that's not what death row inmates are. Death row inmates, if you want to talk to somebody on death row, you really need to be able to handle what they're going through, and most people can't. So I would not advocate for that. So that's why I want to take that blog in a different direction. Just based on the experiences I had, I don't know. I mean, I could have had worse experiences. People have, lots of people that have done this type of thing have, but I was lucky. Um, but yeah, so that was something else. But anyway, going back to Autumn Lee Online, that will likely end up being the home for stories from Death Row when I get the seasons finished. I don't know if you're noticing it, but I'm kind of like doing a play on words, like season one, episode one, for each Death Row story that I'm doing, each individual one. Um, so for each season, when I finish the seasons, I'm gonna just put them all over at Autumn Lee Online and then start a brand new one. So that's more than likely what I'm gonna end up doing over there first. But I plan to continue the stories from Death Row Uncensored and Explicit because there's some incredible, fascinating stories of Death Row inmates. And even though I'm going to be honest, it's not incredibly common for people to be innocent when they're, on death row. It's not incredibly common. They're going to tell you they are. They're going to have flaws in their case. They're going to want to get another trial, but it's not incredibly common. But sometimes you find a rare person that actually has a legitimate claim. And again, that's how it started for me with Richard Cartwright. The very first topic of the story, the reason behind, the inspiration behind stories from Death Row, Uncensored and Explicit. So, to get a little more background on why I decided to start writing that blog series, just take a look at the first two. That's my personal experience of working to help abolish the death penalty in Texas, which obviously I failed, and that's not probably not something that anyone's going to succeed at. But again, that's my experience with that, and then just by experiencing and becoming involved in the abolitionist movement, I exposed myself to a subculture that, again, it's I would not recommend or encourage anybody to do what I did. Nobody should, unless you're like a licensed therapist or something. I mean, if you have the wherewithal, if you have the education, the background, you're a therapist, you can handle people that have literally, I mean, a host of mental disorders. A host of them. I mean, like a menu. If you can handle that, then yeah. Because those people are behind bars. I mean, you're talking to people. I think back now to when I communicated and corresponded with Richard Cartwright and, helped him see his daughter Ricky. And I think back to that now, I had absolutely no way of identifying what he was going through at that time. And that's why people who, have this new, and I don't know what it is, and I have it too, a weird, morbid curiosity about things like that. That's why you shouldn't do that because you can't see yourself how they see you. You have no way of being able to identify with somebody who's literally on death row looking at the end of their lives in front of their faces. There's no way for you to be able to do it. So I would never encourage anyone to do what I did. There are people who have, like, for instance, if you go into my review section, um, Dear Mr. Gacy, I think it's Jason Moss or Jesse Moss. I don't know. The guy who plays him has like the same last name. So, but if you watch the movie Dear Mr. Gacy, that's a true story about somebody who was in college and decided to do his college paper on John Wayne Gacy and correspond with him as a potential victim. But because Gacy was behind bars, Moss felt like he was safe. That's not true. It's just not. So I wouldn't recommend anybody do what I did. Don't write to people in prison. If you're a therapist and you have, some kind of morbid fascination with it, like a lot of people do, it's weird, yeah, but if you do and you're a therapist, that's the type of person who should do it. That's the type of person who should help these people. Anyone else, no, because you're not helping. Honestly, I feel like I did help him because he was my friend, but the damage that I caused to my own life just by the experiences and just by finding out what I found out about him, like that's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. That it that is gonna haunt me literally for the rest of my life. I mean, just finding out what I found out about him. So, without going into too much detail, if you want to check out the blog at Stories from Death Row, or yeah, Stories from Death Row on my website, autumnleafsnews.com. I'm going to put it in the chat in case anyone happens to be listening. There we go. So you can check that out too. Um, Something else too. I wanted to say in the spirit of Valentine's Day, I know I sounded pretty vicious on my last podcast, and I do apologize for the tone. I get really, really angry with some of these things that people just continually are trying to normalize, and because it impacts my life directly. And so that was another reason why I wanted to start up the stories from Death Row, because in a way it almost feels like how people on that side and what I touched on last time, and I'm not even going to talk about it again unless it happens again. But it feels like that's what you're trying to do to me sometimes. And I don't know why, because I didn't commit crime. I don't know. So kind of like what I've been experiencing in my personal life is another inspiration behind Stories from Death Row. But that's all I'm going to say about that. It is Valentine's Day today. If you've been following autumnleafsnews.com, you see the different posts that I have about Valentine's Day history and kind of the uh, dark history that it actually has. But that's not how people see it, and that's not how I see it. So I hope everybody has a wonderful Valentine's Day with whoever you choose to be with today. Maybe yourself, maybe your pet, maybe your friends, family. Just whatever you do, surround yourself with people, things that make you feel alive. Because what the world needs is people who've come alive. Thank you for listening. I love you all. I will be back next Wednesday. I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Take care of yourselves and each other. I don't want to play that song. I want to play this one.